It's been a bit since I've ventured outside of anime land, and while both the planned videos for this jolly month are not anime, it's always nice to have some variety. We won't be venturing too far out because this show, or I guess shows, are kind of considered anime. I remember it was a huge debate, but I don't know if people are still arguing about it. I never considered it anime. Funnily enough, it was because when I was the most active in the Avatar fandom, I hated anime. I thought it was loser land for weirdos, and while I wasn't exactly wrong, I guess I just thought I would enjoy them. But here I am. Anyway, Avatar is a franchise that does not need any introduction. It might be the most universally liked show of all time. There's other contenders of course, but no one dislikes Avatar. If you dislike Avatar, you're either talking about the movies with the blue people, or you're desperately trying to seem different. Avatar has everything you could ask from a show. It's able to be enjoyed by all ages. It's a Nickelodeon show after all. It has a very cool power system, amazing world building, amazing characters, deep messages and conflicts, some of the saddest moments as well as some of the happiest moments. This show really has it all, and so does its sequel to an extent. I'll be talking about The Legend of Korra as well, and while it doesn't match its predecessor, though if I'm being honest, it's very close and honestly does match it a lot of times. It is an amazing show that has the same vibe as The Last Airbender. But I'm not here to talk about all that stuff because it's been said so many times, and honestly I don't think it'd be very fun to talk about. The Legend of Korra, however, I do hope to give a standalone video because that show is pretty special to me, and I think it could be fun to do. But I'm here to talk about romance, because I kind of feel like that's my thing. I just like talking about it, and most of my videos are either entirely revolved around romance or have segments on it. So do I think Avatar was good at romance? Short answer, yeah. Longer answer, yeah, it's really good actually. So let's start with the biggest and main romance from The Last Airbender, Katara and Aang, or Katang in ship language. Now these two are extra special to me because this romance used to be my shit. Nowadays, you ask me what's my favorite romance, I would say like Shin and Lena, or maybe Eren and Mikasa, or like a Jessica Cruz and It's Nova Friel. But back then it was Katang, and looking back, I'm really not sure why. Because there's nothing that special about Katang. Not to say it's bad, I actually still think it's very good, but it just doesn't have that wow factor. I've seen many people actually dislike this ship for reasons such as it doesn't make sense for their characters, especially Katara's, it's too predictable, it's boring, and so on. Of course, a big reason for the hate is that there's another popular ship involving Katara that many people do like, and don't worry, I go over it. It'll be a disservice for me to not, but for now let's talk about why I really do enjoy Katang, despite its faults. Because I couldn't disagree with anyone saying it's predictable. I mean, the very first thing Aang says in this show is,
"Will you go penguin sledding with me?"
It is very clear that this is where the story is getting, and I get that for a lot that's just boring and not very good. But I'd argue that being predictable isn't necessarily a bad thing. Even though the destination is clear, the path is still unknown and can still be incredible. The path is what is most important, not the destination. And I think Katang's path was pretty good. And we go to the next criticism, which is that it doesn't fit their characters that well. The main point I've seen is that it's not the best direction for Katara, someone who's forced to be a mother figure from an incredibly young age, to get with a character who's like a kid and doesn't want to grow up. And I completely understand that point, and I'd agree with you if they got together earlier, at the end of season 1 or something. At that point, Aang hasn't gone through the important events he had gone through by the end and is still really a kid. Then I'd say, yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Katara's journey also revolved around her growing from that trauma and evolving from it. She hadn't gone through that journey either. But they didn't get together that early, they got together at the literal last scene of the show. By that point in time, they've completed their individual journeys and both are now ready to be together. And both of them were integral parts for their respective journeys. Aang helped Katara start her journey and was able to give her moments of childish fun that was robbed from her. He was also ever supporting her journey to become a strong bender and to evolve as a person. Likewise, Katara was able to help Aang get through the fact that he has had his entire life robbed from him and was his rock throughout the story. Both of them were integral supportive pieces for each other, and to me the most important part is that they had plenty of rough patches. They had disagreements, they made mistakes, they were unsure of what they were, yet after everything they eventually saw they loved each other and were ready now and got together. Honestly, that makes them really relatable and shows that this wasn't forced. Despite being the obvious endgame from episode 1, they took their time and I really appreciate that. They easily could have had Aang get with Katara sometime at the North Pole, maybe on the Fire Nation, or the Day of Black Sun, and it would have really been much worse if they decided to do that. It would have been very awkward if they did it earlier. They were just very patient with it, and that allowed them to sprinkle in moments and just build it up slowly. It was very clear throughout the whole show that Aang loved Katara and wanted to be with her. And it was very clear that there was a similar connection with Katara, What was not clear the whole time was if they should get together, but it slowly shaped up to be the clear and right path. But let's not kid ourselves, the biggest reason Katang is hated by many is because of Zutara, because there's another shiny option out there that's very tempting. Now, I said that Katang was my shit back then. It's only logical that back then, I utterly despised Zutara. I thought it was the worst pairing of all time and that it generally was an abomination. Now, years later, it definitely isn't the worst pairing of all time. That honor goes to Eren and Astoria, and I've come to respect Zutara a little. Now, I still don't really like it really wouldn't work with this show, but I realized that there was definitely a world where it could have worked and I'll explain. My biggest problem with Zutara is how the show panned out. Having Zuko and Katara get together would be incredibly rushed. Zuko started the show as Katara's biggest adversary. Of course, he goes on an incredible redemption arc that actually is the face of redemption arcs, but he doesn't actually join the gang until season 3 episode 12. That's more than halfway through the last season of the show, and 52 out of 61 episodes total, which is perfectly paced for his redemption arc, from season 1 having him basically as the main villain, to him discovering himself and having to travel somewhat alone in season 2, and finally him realizing his lifelong dreams were lies and going another path on season 3. It's perfectly paced, with sprinkles of his uncertainty and doubt of his original mission being placed already in season 1, making the payoff so great. But for setting up a romance with Katara, this is a horrible pace. There were two different options that the show had to take for Zutara to work. Option A is that he joins Katara and Aang at the season 2 finale instead of joining Azula. One of the most popular Zutara scenes is Katara offering to heal his scar, and that was in this episode. If Zuko hears that and realizes that joining his father wouldn't fulfill him and instead joining someone who'd offer to heal him after he's done so much against them, then the scene becomes so much more meaningful. Then Katara would have been the tipping point for Zuko, which undoubtedly creates an amazing foundation for Zutara. Option B is that the show gets another season. If Katara and Aang didn't get together, and instead in a hypothetical 4th season, there's more build up and moments for Zuko and Katara, then that could also work as well. But as it is, Zuko and Katara just don't work. As I mentioned before, Zuko joins the gang really late, and even when he does join, Katara is very mistrusting of him, which makes a lot of sense. After he betrayed her and Aang, who literally died because of that. Which, isn't that crazy? The main character of a Nickelodeon show died. Of course, it was pretty brief as Katara needs a special healing water, but still, that's insane. Anyway, it took until the Southern Raiders episode for Zuko and Katara to finally get on good terms and for a connection to be really established. So really, if Zutara were to happen, it'd be after 5 episodes. That's nowhere near enough time to build off that foundation. And the idea of Zutara is, to me, way better than Zutara in practice. The enemies to lovers, polar opposites getting together is very enticing. But to make it work, you'd have to completely change the story. Zutara would be a very big thing. It couldn't just be a side plot that was built alongside the story like Katang. It'd have to be the main plot. It'd shift the focus of Zuko's redemption from his uncle to Katara. It potentially reduces Katara to just Zuko's motivation and love interest. It just messes with the story too much. And conversely, I think the idea of Katang is worse than what it is in practice. Because Avatar does not rely on romance. I wouldn't say it's integral to the story. Katang was able to be developed slowly throughout the show and be used as a gag while it develops, and has a necessary payoff to end the story off on it. Zutara just doesn't have that. But I have softened up on the pair over the years, and I honestly would not be opposed to it happening in, say, the live action adaptation. I have not watched it, nor will I, because I frankly don't care about it, but I'd be curious to see if Zutara can work, especially if they make the change of Zuko joining Katara at the cave. But Zuko did end up with someone else, or at least ended the show with someone else. For some reason they ended up breaking up after the show ended, don't ask me why. Of course I'm talking about Mei. No, not that Mei, the email knife throwing one. Zuko and Mei are a pretty simple couple. Importantly, when they got together in season 3, Mei was supposed to represent the potential comfort Zuko had in the Fire Nation. He lived in luxury, he had his father's approval, he had a high position, and he had a loving girlfriend. But still, he felt empty. He didn't feel good. He still felt like he's always felt. Everything felt like a facade, because it was a facade. That honor he had won for so long wasn't real, and he just now realized it. But despite the facade of this amazing life, Mei wasn't a facade. She did genuinely love him. Sure, they were a little dysfunctional because, well, how would they not be given how they grew up? But deep down, they cared for each other and loved each other no matter what. Which is remarkably simple, but I mean, that's what it's all about. Importantly, Mei stood by Zuko even after he very rudely broke up with her and betrayed the Fire Nation, famously betraying Azula to help him, someone who was her best friend leading up to that. An amazing moment that shows her major commitment to him and that it wasn't a facade. Also starting Azula's descent, which is also remarkably well done. It's Avatar, very few things aren't. And I think it was very important for Zuko to have this rock with how turbulent his life was. Having someone unconditionally love him like that is great. Of course there's Uncle Iroh, but having an outside source is also very important. Admittedly, Zuko is kind of a dick boyfriend, but you know. A for effort. They were just pretty cute together, and for whatever reason they apparently broke up. Something communication was bad, which, well, I guess is pretty fitting, but that's just pretty stupid to me. Them getting back together and just being together in general is a pretty big deal. It doesn't make sense to rip them apart basically right after the show ends. Apparently some writer said they get back together, which I hope they do, but going on and off is a really annoying trope, so let's just pretend they didn't break up. Not many people read these comics anyway. Also, Azumi has a lot of Mei in her, so let's just go with that. I'm gonna lump Sokka and Suki with Zuko and Mei because they're both fairly simple pairs that just don't have much to complain about. I really don't think you can hate Sokka and Suki that much, but Suki was really important for Sokka because she made him stop being a sexist asshole. That was really necessary for Sokka to get his ass handed to him by Suki. This sparked his development into one of the show's best characters. Now admittedly, Suki falling for him that early is a little odd. Like, he waltzes in, calls in her group weak because they're a woman, and then basically right after he admits he was wrong, she likes him? I guess seeing him being so committed to getting stronger and was willing to do things he never wanted to do made her fall for him, but I don't know, it was a little premature. Also, there was that time where Sokka had a full-on romance with Yue, which we know how that turned out.
My first girlfriend turned into the moon. That's rough, buddy.
But honestly, these things really didn't impact Sokka and Suki's romance. They were cute in all their moments together, they loved each other, they supported each other, they deserved each other. Again, very simple, but it worked. It for sure benefited both of their characters, and it is for sure better than the alternate pairs people thought of. Toph and Sokka is not very good, guys. Toph honestly doesn't have a good ship with anyone, if I'm being honest. She's one of the best characters from the show. I have her Fortnite skin, I really like her, but romance just doesn't seem to be her thing. There's just no one that matches her, and she doesn't seem like the one to really want one that bad. I know the majority of this probably comes from the fact that people think Suyin's dad was Sokka, but that's really dumb. Sokka wouldn't cheat on Suki, and Toph wouldn't have kids with Sokka. Let's just stop, guys. Sokka and Suki were just good, not much to say here. It is very weird though that the Legend of Korra doesn't give us closure on what happened with Sokka and Suki. This seems like a missed opportunity. So let's move on to the Legend of Korra, and to its biggest and most important romance, Korra and Asami, or Korrasami. Before I get into the pair themselves, I think it is very important to establish the context for Korrasami. Korrasami is widely considered to be the first same-sex couple to be shown in a Western children's show. At the time, it still was unfortunately not widely accepted, and because of that, Nickelodeon really shackled its relationship. The creators just could not have that many moments in this show. They simply were not allowed. They didn't have a green light, they had like a yellow light. Yet they managed to pull it off in the end and set the groundwork for many to follow in its footsteps. So it is really unfair for me to say it's not great because of a lack of moments or build-up, because they literally were not allowed to do that. But honestly, even with the restraints placed, I think Korrasami is still really good as is. There was for sure a foundation to work on in season 3 kind of, but especially in season 4. After Korra got paralyzed, Asami was the only one she answered to. Her letters were the most important to her, and when she returned to Republic City, Korra and Asami were together a lot and clearly had some type of unspoken connection. And to me, when they went into the spirit realm for their date, it didn't seem forced. Now it did seem a little rushed because, well, it was. There really was no way not to make it rush with the cards dealt to the creators, but it wasn't forced, which I think means they did a pretty good job. There was a clear foundation, and that's really all that could have been asked for. But for fun, let's go over what could have been done without the constraints they had. We firstly get rid of the love triangle. This honestly isn't just for the benefit of Korrasami, but for the whole story, because this was so shit. No one wanted this, no one liked this, so we're removing it. By just not having Mako be with Asami. I don't like Mako and Korra, but I think it was fine to exist for a bit. But Mako and Asami really did not need to. There were other ways for the story to have worked in season 1, and they for sure didn't have to happen in season 2. It just made things messy for no reason. And the second thing is, of course, just have Korra and Asami interact more. They really don't interact that much before season 4. They're just not put in the same place as much and rarely isolated together at all. But I thought whenever they were isolated together in the show, they were really good. They have really good natural chemistry and had the potential to have an amazing dynamic. Korra had a very turbulent journey throughout the show, and having a solid rock of love and support from Asami would have been amazing to watch. She went through so much adversity, and those are often the best times for romances to have their moments. Korra could have really helped Asami figure out her identity and what she wanted to do as well, to separate herself from her father and to become her own person. Asami really didn't have that much to do, so to expand on her arc with Korra would have been really good. I'm pretty sure they kinda do it in the comics, which I have not read, but this time you can't blame me. I don't think most people read these comics. But from the limited things I've heard, they seem really good in them. So if the creators were allowed to do what they wanted, I think Korrasami would be in the elite tier of romances. That remains true for most of Legend of Korra. Nickelodeon really fucked over the show, and I honestly believe an unrestricted Legend of Korra could have been better than The Last Airbender. But that's a topic for another video. This show had some other smaller romances scattered around. Bolin had a few. He had that one date with Korra, which, while cute, they really wouldn't have been a great pair. Better than Mako and Korra, but like everything would have been. Then he got with the emo psycho water tribe girl, Eska. That was fun to watch, but it was obviously more of a gag than anything. So it was his movie star arc kind of, in the entirety of season 2. It just wasn't very good. And then eventually he'd end up with Opal, who was a great fit for him. Someone more calm and collected to match his more energetic and brash personality. I really liked how she broke up with him when he joined Cuvera. It added more stakes to the conflict. Ultimately, they got back together pretty quickly, but still, it was something impactful. These two are among those simple pairs that didn't have to do much more than be cute, and they were cute, so no complaints from me. Some people really hated this Kai kid, but I honestly didn't mind him. He was supposed to be a brat who matures after joining the new Air Nomads, and he and Jinora had a cute dynamic. Nothing to complain about here as well. The show also had a romance with some villains, Zahir and Sparky Boom Woman. Granted, they didn't have that many moments together because Zahir was busy being one of the best villains of all time, but it wasn't intrusive and brought more humanity to Zahir, which was the whole point of him. He was a villain, but a very human one. Almost too human. So yeah, nothing to complain about again. Is there anyone I'm forgetting? Oh yeah, Varric and Julie. These two were just hilarious, and while honestly it may seem a little weird for them to become a couple, it was really fun to watch with good payoff, so it gets a thumbs up from me. So in conclusion, the main takeaways for the romance of the Avatar franchise is that both shows did not end with any bad romances. All of the ones that ended up being endgame were either good or neutral, and there were a fair bit of them, so that's actually pretty impressive. All of them were fairly simple, but all served their roles perfectly. They complemented the characters, reinforced messages, and gave us cute moments. So yeah, despite not relying on it, the Avatar franchise is really good at romance.